Hi, what's going on? We're here, we're back, and I got some experimenting to do with some tools iQuare has dropped in my lap. So, it's pretty cool. So, what's been going on? Well, we have ourselves here some rudimentary kiting micro, which is pretty cool. Beyond that, it looks like... let's see here. There's a couple of small housekeeping things I had to do, like going into weapons data and removing the mechanical flag from the lockdown weapon so that you can use it on the lobotomy mine on other things. Let's see here. Looks like iQuare mostly worked on kiting micro and maybe some overlord stuff today, so the add-ons that I wanted to get resolved were still no good. Maybe we can put some work into slapping those hooks around until we can figure out what's wrong with them exactly, but until then... Oh, a classic. So what was the latest change here? Let's take a look. Oh, yes. So he didn't disable the jump wrappers on the GitHub or the GitLab repo. Now that's funny. I think it's an inject. As much as I still feel like I'm slapping myself around trying to figure out what's going on and kind of flailing and not really doing a whole lot of anything, I am at least somehow able to identify when there's some really weird issue and resolve it. So before, like, if you go back like half a year, whatever, if there was some issue that iQuare didn't test himself and like we found some issue like that, a crash on startup, that would probably be it for the stream in terms of modding development. Anyway, I'd be like, oh well, I guess I got to do like production or something and not test anything because I simply don't have the wherewithal, the memory knowledge, to figure out what's going on. So, like, I think you go back long enough, I didn't even have like A's installed, and I couldn't even open and produce the or compile the GPTP plugin until I got Visual Studio 2019. So, pretty good stuff there. So I see here that he has these trap jump wrappers, but presumably I can just disable them in here, and that will stop them from being called. I mean, I know I just said like, oh yeah, I can fix this. There's no problems here. I can resolve whatever this issue is. And then now I'm sitting here like, I wonder what exactly would resolve the issue. Suffice it to say, it's not always obvious. But if that doesn't work, I can mass comment out the rest of it. So it's not really so impossible to figure out what's going on here. That being said, assuming I can actually get the game running. Yeah, there we go. Resolve that. So those wrappers will eventually fix the stuff related to... it's like a temporary fix for the fact that the Protoss structures, and actually there's a Zerg or two Zerg structures that have not been implemented yet, but they will also have the same issue where they're cloaked permanently. Those issues will be resolved by these memory patches, but it's a temporary solution because it also disables the behavior of doors, as far as I understand. So it somehow messes with their interactability, right? And so because of that, we're basically stuck in a position where if we want them to work, if we want those doors to work, which I think they are useful for a variety of things, they just haven't been fully actualized. I mean, I would say the same thing for traps or whatever, but unfortunately, we need unit IDs. So, obviously, if we can't get the doors to work, that might invalidate some concepts for future things. Like, obviously, I can think of a lot of examples. All of the micro missions, the ones were at one point in time micro missions, those were things that we were going to completely rework. Have doors in there that actually serve a purpose that you can hack to lower the floodgates, or you can maybe just destroy by attacking or whatever. But perhaps that would take a very long time, or there would be some other downside to it. Like, for one, you wouldn't be able to raise it back upwards. It would be permanently destroyed, or maybe it would be repaired afterwards or something. But anyway, you can't really do any of that. Obviously, if the doors themselves don't fucking work. So hopefully we can get that resolved at some point. But anyway, it's not active right now anyway. So those will still have some issues associated with them. But I actually did send Hydra a brief to-do list, which included the trap hardcode, as well as the add-on offsets for the quarry and the future station. I believe those have not been messed with. I can double-check that real quick. But of course, I don't actually have the ability to build that add-on, so I guess I'll just find... Here we go. Yeah. Well, at least you can build them there, but it is pretty goofy that it doesn't work. I'm pretty sure that's just because the hooks themselves do not work properly. And so obviously the quarry is not going to work if those two don't work. But with the dry dock, you can't even go as far as building them. It doesn't even work. I'm not sure why, though. Because the dry dock is obviously an oddly shaped structure. Occupying... I guess it should probably be more like an engineering bay or something, but... Anyway, if I try to build it, as you can see, for some reason, it's like completely off-center. Probably because that's just how the future station's add-on offset is or something, so... You can't even build them with them, it doesn't let you. What's up, Veek? Overriding those functions did nothing. Ollie Debug confirmed that the hooks were there, so you don't know. Well, in Hydra-specific inject, iQueer has added in... Well, for one, it crashes the game right now, so... Disable game crashing wrappers. So if you want to pull that commit that I just made, you can actually take a look at the trap jump wrappers in Hydra-specific inject, which maybe will shed some light on, like, I haven't followed these addresses in the assembly dump, so I don't actually know what they're doing. But yeah, maybe you can follow those and find and like see if they're part of the functions that are even in the trap hooks. I would also double check that trap hooks is still doing nothing, because I'm pretty sure it was causing some really weird issues or crashing or whatever, due to the fact that I added a bunch of hooks yesterday. So obviously I actually hooked unit is floor trap, I hooked disable unit, and I hooked update unit strength and apply default orders, which means there's only one other hook in the entire game that messes with those unit IDs, which is the orders entries function, which is a massive switch case fucking spaghetti code bullshit nonsense, makes me very angry even though I'm not a good programmer function. And I did not want to do that. I've already actually hooked that in A's, but we never went anywhere with it. But basically it's like, if the order ID is this, then do this. It's called these functions. It's so fucking asinine. It's like the worst way that you could possibly implement that. So of course that's the way that Blizzard went with. Oh baby. Blech. So anyway, I suppose that's enough housekeeping for one day. For one mod stream. Let me double check here, because there was also a few other things here. So obviously there's some icon stuff on the Ghost, where if you... I'll pop up to demonstrate this part. Man, when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, where's my Ghost? So we have here this like little weird black icon. I don't even know how this is possible, but it's like... In the case of the Vulture mine, or Vulture Spider Mines, right? It's like, oh, you just have these. Now, I think this is probably actually bugged. Like, if we went into a melee environment real quick, and I pick Terran, and I spawn Ghost, you'll notice that it's there, right? Even though I can't use the ability. And then, not the case for Vulture, right? So, but as soon as I have an armory, I can use it. So that's like that. It doesn't even show up, right? So there's some additional like, UI-based, UI-bound hardcode that is pretty insane. What is the function called? Well, I don't know. I think it's like progress order in here. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about how bad it actually is, and you're just going to say, yeah, that's how we would have to do it if we did procedural, but... So, yeah, this is it. I'll DM you the goods. Just look into that. It's basically a series of switch cases. And I think it has a few jumps, which are obviously gross. Yeah. Further you get into it, the worse it gets. One sec. It sounds like things are exploding behind me. BRB. All right, well, that was a long and apropos of nothing BRB, but I'm back now. So what do we got here? Object-oriented tried managing spaghetti. Usually is more readable, but also has potential to be written terribly. I'm not sure what would be the best replacement to that switch statement. If not, an object-oriented programming like virtual function that is different for every object. Procedural will have big switch statements, but jumps were used in the past. But people agreed that they shouldn't use them as they were very destructive to code structure, aka hard to read. Such switch case optimally would only call other functions for more clarity, but it would still be pretty huge for something as big as a list as orders. Okay, well, hear me out, man who may not still be here anyway because you may have fucked off since I was gone for like 10 minutes. Surely, instead of it being a fucking series of orders, right? Surely, instead of it being unit ID or order ID hardcode, surely we could have it be based on like flags or properties of the order or of the owner of the order, the unit that the order is assigned to. And surely, based on those things, we could do one fucking thing with it and then return, like call a function, like you said, or call maybe a series of functions at most. Surely we could not jump. Surely we could not have fucking insane extra parameters for checking shit. Surely we could not have a list of 1,000 variables. Yeah, surely we could structure our code better than this. No matter how fucking long our list of unique orders or interactions becomes, surely it can look better than this. I mean, fundamentally, we do need to have some sort of thing that says if this, then that, and there's many thises and many that's. So I understand that it has to kind of look like that on some level, even if it's abstracted and object-oriented or whatever. But surely it can be better than that exact thing. Like, Jesus Christ. Okay. Bing bong. So, anyway. I was trying to explain all of the different things that I was going to be doing or whatever. Okay, so yeah, so there's two other things that I wanted to take a look at, and then there's the bonus to make it 3, because 3 is that iQueer did the kiting micro, so I'll probably experiment with that. Obviously, it's like super early draft. I don't expect it to be great, but we'll see what we can configure in that sense. Well, we don't have to stick with something just because iQueer prefers it. And I'm not even saying that as because it's like this is a democracy or whatever. But I mean, surely something as fundamental as the style of programming, be it procedural or object-oriented, should probably be decided on before we get a whole, like, a huge amount or whatever of work done. But I'm also I'm very open to the idea that we should try out a system or a style or whatever for like a month, see how it works out. And if we're running into problems, that's when we switch. But that also means trying the other system for a month. So either way, we're talking about a little bit of time. So like, if we try object oriented for a month and we hate it, it's likewise with procedural. Like, we'll at least know, we'll have some experience to back up our decision. Whereas, at least I have very little experience with either. And obviously, the rest of us have. It seems like you and Icor have more experience with object-oriented, like you're talking about, but I guess if you count AI as procedural, I've got a lot of experience with that, but I don't know if I count AI as anything. So the two things that I had talked to Icor about were the terrain checks for the lobotomy mine. I don't know where he intends to implement them. He said that he started. Let's see. Bonk. He said he tried to add Savant Mine terrain check. I assume he means Ghost Mine, but wasn't successful. He thinks he missed one of the patches. He'll commit the change to work more on it later. Yeah, it's a lot of fucking jumping and shit, which really shouldn't exist. So, anyway, that's not something that we can really mess around with, I don't think. He didn't leave behind instructions anyway. But the other thing is revising the Nathrokor a little bit. I've already decided to remove the strafing thing because it's just a headache to implement to see if it would even work. And since it's not like a guaranteed thing or something that I'm really interested in pursuing in this engine, it's better to just figure that out on our own. But so the main weapon, right? The weapon, when it fires, is only dealing single target instead of AoE, because it's using the attack melee opcode. Now, we had a similar issue with trying to turn the Gorgoleth's attack into an AoE, right? I want the attack to be a cone. I have no idea how to do that myself. But, like, it should almost, like, fan outwards. So, like, the origin point is right in front of the Nathrokor's face, and it's guaranteed to hit its target. But, like, almost paradoxically, a safer place than behind the unit that is being attacked would be, like, directly to its left or right, because then the cone doesn't hit you or whatever. So that's pretty much the only, like, unique thing about the unit that requires some weird behavior or whatever. I've only used Unit Finder with a box. But yeah, Icor has not messed around with that. So the other thing I was thinking is maybe in order to make it AoE, we could make it fire weapon and attack shift proj, or one or the other. I honestly don't know. Because the cone thing is not actually, like, the fire bat attack isn't a cone, but it's at least like a line. And if I could just modulate or modify the AoE of each segment, that would be one thing. No, like I said, I only used a box. Like, the search radius was just, like, 64 on one side, 64 on the other, or whatever. I don't even... Oh, you're talking about 4 each. I misread that as 4 arch. Like an arch. Like an arc. Like a fucking geometric shape. I don't remember if I used 4 each. Extend script toolkit CS6. Also known as gay. Fucking gay. There we go. I was pretty sure I had to do something like that. Checking for cone is as simple as checking if in distance. Incorrect angle. Yeah. Well, honestly, everything should probably... Everything that currently checks in a box... I think the treasury radius should probably be the only thing that checks in a box. Everything else should be a circle, now that I think about it. I was actually thinking about that a long time ago. But... you know how it is. No, what I mean is, like, the radius of effects. Like, think of the Ecclesiast effect, where it bestows bonus shields when the target dies, right? Like, that should definitely be a circle, not a box. Because if it's a box, then you can be standing at the corner and still get it. So it's not like an accurate representation of 36 pixels in a row, or 24, or whatever. Like, I think it was 30, might have been 64. It's not an accurate representation of 64 pixels around, or to range around. But the treasury should be using a box for the sake of tiles, because that's aligned with the building grid. So that makes sense. That's pretty much the only thing that makes sense for that sort of thing. Like a pylon, I don't actually know how the pylon thing works, because there's a million bits of hardcode associated with it. So that should probably be added at some point, because that'll remove literal edge cases in this case, where you're on the edge of the range. So, pretty epic. What even is that song? I recognize that song from somewhere, but I don't know where it is. What's up, Bailiffon? Welcome. I don't know what to listen to today. Woo, a massacre. The fuck? I like how this one in particular has no track info for some reason. Why does my music folder, of all things, have limited permissions and ownership? Hello? Alright, boys, it's time to go into some next level shit here. Oh wait, I do have full control. Besides special permissions. That doesn't explain anything, though. Why can't I edit this file? Hello? Hello? Apply. Wow, that's a good one. Oh, and you know, notice the album title for this album is, it's the Roman numerals for 2. Well, you may notice it now, actually. I just fixed this, but it was actually II, or maybe it was LI or something. And so when I just set it up there. So in Foobar, I just fixed that, but for a second they were like, all of these tracks were separate under I lowercase I, and this one was the only one with the correct album because I just put it in. So. Sorry, I just thought for whatever reason that really made me fucking laugh. I don't know why exactly, but that was pretty funny to me. Oh. For some reason, can't drag and drop on a foobar anymore. Honestly, pretty annoying. I don't know why that stopped working correctly. All right. How's it going? It's going. Managed to do a little housekeeping, and then I put away some groceries and a very long BRB, and now I'm here. So, what is on our to-do list for today? I wanted to experiment with that kiting micro that Iker put in, but I'm not actually sure if it'll work out. Let's close that for now. But yeah, I was planning on mostly focusing on, since the tech tree framework is there for all of the changes that we've made, I was hoping to tackle some AI issues. So if you were looking for something in particular to do, Veeker, and you didn't feel like diving into the options menu stuff that I was talking about in that log that I sent you last night, where I was talking about how like you should be able to like toggle on or off the APM meter and the timer. That's one of those things where I understand why somebody might be averse to tackling that. So if you're not interested in that, we definitely could use a redraft of the air-focused build orders, or really just any of the build orders. I mean, obviously, you mentioned earlier that it would make sense to just completely fucking hack them apart and redo them. So if you wanted to just practice some builds and then commit them to paper and then transfer them into AI build orders and then test them and study them, that would definitely be helpful. The main issue, of course, is figuring out what to do about there's like some shit that we got to do for the production that I'm going to take a look at in a little bit. So but for now, I'll just go to, I guess I can just take a look at it now. So the main deal is that these whole fucking production blocks, right? I should really separate these out, I think, so that I can remove them from all of the other context. Try to boil them down and make them a little bit more reasonable. So, all right, so here we have the production blocks. First thing that we do in these production blocks is basically this add prod main block is multi-run, not called, and it is multi-run by, for example, it's usually multi-run in the build orders, but also in the expansion. So if I go to like t-expand, exp ran town, you'll see add prod is ran fairly early in, actually, as soon as the command center finishes, more or less. This could probably be refactored to be a little bit more intelligent about that sort of thing. Maybe we could have a separate block that basically runs the ad production stuff. And we might even have a separate block for adding expansion production as well, but obviously I'm getting a little ahead of myself. What I mainly would want to do here is make it so that they wait until they have like a certain amount of workers at the area before they start considering like the resources boon, because otherwise they're going to get requests for shit that they can't actually spend the money on yet. So, is an ad prod global? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Insofar as it's called by expansions and build orders, yes. Which is why we have checks for the when we get to this point, we're setting a can prod variable, which I think is used in this is probably like inefficient variable usage, but basically it's to default the production to 1 so that at least this function will run 1 time, and then elsewhere after the fact it will wait. Although I think so the add prod itself just assigns the production threads based on personality, but it also crucially waits for town count to be at least 1, which means you have to have at least 1 base intact, because town count itself is added to and subtracted from based on active bases, and that's like obviously in a separate function. And it also waits for this particular town that this add prod block is being added to own, in this case, a command center. But obviously in other cases it would be like Nexus or Hatchery Lair Hive. So then we have these death checks, which are obviously for assigning the thread that is eventually going to assign the production requests based on personality. And if it doesn't pass any of these, so the crash battlecruiser death is not 1, 2, or 3, if it's 4 or greater, or if it's 0, you end up with this, which is the general production block. The general production block assumes a more reputable focus of factory into starport into barracks, which probably could change now that we've significantly changed a large part of the game. So by default, it will prioritize factories over anything else. And afterwards, it will check for starport resources. And after that, it'll check for barracks resources. So in a world where you don't have enough money to get either of the first two, you will eventually get to add barracks. And that's also guaranteed by the check here. Well, I guess it's not really guaranteed, because you might be waiting for the can prod variable, since we can't do like conditional statements where it has to wait for both of them to be true at the same time. I mean, obviously we could change this just to be at most 299 add prod gen, and then in this particular case we would do jump can prod 1 add prod gen 13, and this at least will wait for both of these to be true at any given time, which means we're guaranteeing that this function will return with add barracks at the minimum. But if it also has gas, it will do starport. If it has sufficient, even more than that for factory, obviously we can revise the cost now, since we revised the cost of the actual units. So that's one of those cases where I think clearly this whole organization could probably use some work, but this is basically like a switch case. The other thing is that it's also checking for a side disruptor death. In this case, we actually, in other scripts I've written since then, we've actually had a different variable. So this would be prod cycle 013, and we would use var. Wait, what was that anyway? It was setting it to 0, so we would set var set prod cycle 013, right? I keep saving instinctively, so we'll just production.asc3. So in this case, now instead of checking for side disruptor deaths, we can do, we're jumping back to add prod gen in this particular case, right? So we would say and I guess this should be 0 as well, but at least jump prod cycle 1 at prod gen. And this basically tells the AI to, like, if you've called add factory check and doesn't, eventually add factory check itself is further down here, obviously, but it will return unsuccessfully if it doesn't have the money, or, well, it won't ever get called if it doesn't have the money, obviously, so these resource checks are kind of redundant. But if it doesn't have the tech requirements for what it needs, or if it doesn't have, if it's already exceeded the number of factories it can get. So if it has, like, if that town can only get 8 factories, and it has 8 factories, and it calls add factory, it will return unsuccessfully, which means, basically just means that that variable, prod cycle, does not get set to 1. Instead, it stays 0. But if it gets set to 1, which means you've added a request, this jumps back to add prod gen. I'm not sure that it's supposed to jump back to add prod gen. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to jump to the weight that's down here. And this is probably the, like, a flaw where there was some refactoring going on or something. So the unfortunate thing is, okay, I guess we could probably do this a little bit differently, right? So in this particular case, what we could do, right, is we could do something like, now, I actually don't know how to do this and keep all of the other checks intact. But basically what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to have, for example, the add prod gen res check, where it checks for at least 300 ore, right? I guess we don't really need that because we check for a minimum of resources down here anyway, so this is kind of a redundancy. But the can prod thing is kind of a big deal. So maybe we do revert this back to an at least check, right? So it would be like at our EX weight can prod 1 13, right? So maybe that's how we would do it. So we would wait for can prod to be 1, and then we would var at L call prod cycle 1 add prod weight 13. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to write that block down here. And add prod weight would be like return. And this would be return. Okay. I wonder if there should also be like a local 13 at L1 or at M1. And I guess it wouldn't be that. Local is 255. I'm not sure about this particular check, because it basically means that it will sidestep the weight entirely if the expansion in question only has that kind of thing. But we have the resource checks in play. So basically what this is saying is as soon as you have the money, you need to build at least 2 production structures. So maybe 2 is actually not really that important, but I feel like that's actually not that big of a deal. In my thought process anyway, this actually might be fine. Okay, so here we have, right, what we have just changed about add prod gen as our like test run for the remaining add prods, which are obviously specific to the other factions or the other personalities, is we've removed a redundant resource check, which is good. Removing redundancies where you don't actually need them. I think that's fine. Cleans up the code. In this case, we're waiting for a variable to be set. Can prod will get set dynamically throughout the game, so it's important that this is in a loop and not something that we just check once. Obviously, it's set to true. It's basically a Boolean. That's by default is false. It's set to true based on as soon as this is called. But if we search for can prod 0, in the middle of attacking, can prod is set to 0. I think that's the only case right now. But another obvious case that we could add would be scrolling down to the defense under attack stuff. And in the case where under attack is called either at all or only in the max, maybe depending on the personality or depending on what you wanted to set it up as, you might add down here where it says like setting under attack to 2, right? Or when is it this even? This seems like really bad form. Why wouldn't we just do it this way? Wait, hold on. What even is this fucking loop? I'm getting sidetracked here, but I'm not really sure what the fuck is going on in this loop. So the first thing is we wait. This wait 12 thing is a dummy wait. That always I put in everything that loops so that it doesn't infinitely loop, obviously. Player combat, any player, current player, at anywhere. True, wait. So wait for this to be true. Where any player's unit is any, and current player's unit is group buildings and SCVs. So wait until that's true. Wait until any unit owned by any player is attacking the current player's unit, SCVs or buildings. And then set under attack, both in the under attack opcode, but also a variable called under attack. And then wait until either this is now false and they're not under attack, or wait for 240 frames. And then wait 240 more frames. I think this should just be like instant, right? Because you're already waiting for the frames. I don't know why you would double it. If you were going to double the frame count, then you would just change this to 480. So I'm not really sure what I was doing back then. But then you call uAttack max. Now, all uAttack max does is immediately it sets under attack to 2 and then waits up to 480 frames before returning? Which I guess is like a failsafe so that they don't get hard stuck. But I'm wondering what the significance of this is. I don't think there's a value in setting under attack to 2 always. Like, it's not like it forces a refresh of the defense counts. As we saw with melee AI when we swapped over to melee AI, like actual melee class AI instead of campaign class. What that actually did is it just made the attacks completely ignore the bases when they were under attack. So they would never use attacks to defend, even when under attack 2 is set. So I'm actually not even sure if under attack 2 does anything for us in this case. I think this was just me shooting in the dark, and I didn't see anything horrible happen as a result of it, so I kept it. That being said, under attack 2, what it's supposed to do is make the AI behave as if it's always under attack. So in a case like this, I actually think if we're going, as long as we're doing that, if we're just going to return anyway, right? Like, so my thought process is we should have some sort of jump at the beginning here, where if the... Well, no, then you're still calling a block that you don't actually need to call, so I'm not really sure what the fucking significance of it is. Like, I think you should probably have something in here that's like false jump. But I think wait, maybe this is where the jump goes? Player combat syntax is kind of fucked up, so I don't actually know. Oops, that's the wrong one. So player combat does operator and jump type as separate. So in this case, it would be false jump. And then the block is... blank return. So now, if there is no aggressive action, they're not under attack, they exit this loop. right? But otherwise, they keep in the loop. And if you really wanted to make sure that this didn't go on for too long, you would take like 1440, you would divide it by, say, like you can only do this for a maximum of like 30 seconds, right? Yeah, in such a case, I think you would just hard code that into this timer. Although I get potentially wanting to make it so that it's not that long. Like 480 is, well, 240 is 10. So yeah, 480 is only 20 seconds. That is still a long time to not do anything other than build defensive units. So maybe that's fine. In which case, this is kind of redundant, right? And we would just say that I think you would just call it using player combat itself. So you'd wait the 240 frames and then check again to make sure that they're not still under attack. If they are still under attack, you wait an additional... So you wait 10 seconds after the first attack has happened. So like a minimum of 10 seconds, defense mode is engaged as soon as an SCV or a building is under attack, which is very kind of goofy, I understand. But it's like a good middle ground between too much time and not enough time, right? So you wait 10 seconds. If that's all and there's nothing else, you pass through this completely because this is not true anymore. So this command gets ignored, and it gets checked and returns false, and you just reset everything and you go back to you attack and you wait for another attack. If it is true and they are still under attack, then you wait a minimum 20 additional seconds. So if they're still under attack after 10 seconds, they get another 20 seconds out of their timer, and then they return. So it's like max you're immobilizing the requests for 30 seconds. But I mean, even then, like, what's the downside? Say they're under attack even after all of those 30 seconds. They're taking a sustained attack for longer than 30 seconds. Then 12 frames after they reset everything, it happens again because they're still under attack. I guess the downside here is if you're only engaging their units, their defense forces, and not their buildings and SCVs, by the time they've deactivated their defense stuff, they may not train new units. Like, they may not consider themselves to be under attack anymore. But obviously this doesn't completely set all of their behavior, but I still think this is it's not really that much of a change in the grand scheme of things. We pretty much just replaced a call that would never be ignored with a call that will be ignored if it's no longer necessary, and so it's slightly cleaner, but it definitely seems a little goofy. So anyway, what I was getting at here is that if you do go into under attack max, maybe this is the point where you say var set prod psych or can prod 013, whereas over here you set it to 1. I think that could be something fairly basic, right? You're basically setting certain booleans. At some point, I may also call like attack bool and have attack bool itself handle that. I'm not really sure how that'll go, but anyway, I do like the add prod wait thing because it basically offloads the waiting. Instead of that being something that happens in every single block, it's now only happening once. So you're calling that in a procedural sense as soon as certain things are true. And we've added another can prod check, which is fine. We've obviously replaced the side disruptor stuff with stuff related to prod cycle, which is also fine. Though I think there's probably a more elegant way to do this as well. Because in add factory check, add starport check, and add barracks check, which is all that it gets called if prod cycle is 0, I could just put the check in there. Since these are calls, I could just do something like this. Whereas add barracks check. Hold on. So right at the... Yeah, I think right at the beginning, we could do something like, if this is 1, then you jump to blank return. And I think that would work out fine for the factory as well. So that's like a, in my opinion, a more reasonable way to do that. Then we get rid of those like ugly var checks in the middle of this stuff. And now it's just straight up resource checks that dictate whether or not you call them. And then after 300 seconds, which is, I don't know exactly how many frames off the top of my head, but it's 240 plus 60. 60 is like 2.5. So yeah, so that's 12.5 seconds. I'm pretty sure. You jump back up to add prod gen. And you wait for can prod to be set to 1, which means you're not under attack for longer than 10 seconds. And also means that you're not attacking. And yeah, prod cycle. So basically, if you've already recently implemented something. So I guess in this particular case, the wait based on the production should be coming before the wait for the can prod. Because in my mind, oh, well, here's the other thing that might conflict with this when it comes to making it a prod cycle thing. Because we don't have an array of variables. We don't have that kind of thing going. And in this case, we are assuming, like, based on town count, or we're not really scaling the weight down based on town count. This is a global weight. So, because add prod itself, right? Add prod gets called by all expansions as well as the main base. So this is another thing. It's not an insurmountable issue, but we'll go down to add prod wait, and instead of waiting 1200, right? I think we would do some sanity check, like if you've got like you're waiting for a minimum of 300 frames anyway, right? That's a minimum of 12.5 seconds. I think we dropped this minimum actually down to 240, which is 10 seconds. I mean, that's its own thing. If you have at least, I want to, honestly, it sounds hilarious because of all the things that I've said about it, but I actually think 3 bases is probably enough to perpetually build production structures, assuming you have the money. And if you don't have the money, you should just fail out of the, I mean, you just won't call the blocks. So we'll obviously, I'll be adjusting the amount of resources there. So in add prod wait, we can do something like, obviously, like in this case, there's a failsafe to immediately return if you don't have 2 production structures in the town in question, or if you don't have 4 production structures globally by the time, well, and again, this is like not including town centers. So I think that's fine. Those are fine sanity checks to have. And then we can do something to the effect of var at L jump town count 3. I guess it could be mining count. Is that a variable that I'm actually tracking? It looks like it. So we'll do mining count 313. Oh yeah, 3 blank return 13. And then we could do something like var ex jump. Well, mining count 2. And then we can, I mean, obviously, if they only have 1, that's fine too. All right, I think that's fine. So in this particular case, we've scaled the production stuff down. It's not a very intelligent way, but we can't have like we can't be waiting for variables, in which case I would just add or subtract a certain amount of frames, in theory, value of the variable or to a variable, and then wait for that variable. But we don't have the luxury of doing that. So again, in this particular case, we can just copy and paste this whole thing, and then we can set it so that, yeah, there's nothing actually specific about it. So I wonder if we can actually simplify this even further. I mean, the thing that's specific is the sequence in which these production structures are requested. No, that's exactly what I wanted, Veek. If you have 3 or more mining bases, you should not wait to build another production structure. That's what that logic is. If you have 2 or more mining bases, you wait 600 frames. If you have 1 or less, you wait 1200 frames. So for the way to resolve these production structures, I'm actually not sure what we want to do there. Because this really could be one function instead of splitting it up to the number of personalities. But for the issue with adding the production itself. So I wonder if we could just call one thing, one thread, right, or one block. If we could call one block and check resources based on that. What are you talking about, the first two? Yes, if you have 3 or less production structures, immediately return and build a 4th. If you have 1 or less, so less than 2 production structures in the current town, build a 2nd one. The first 3 examples are jumping back as long as the conditions are true. I am aware that they are jumping back. I just wrote these and narrated the entire process and explained exactly what I wanted from them while I was doing it. So, come on now. Don't sidetrack me, please. So the main concern that I'm trying to resolve right now is figuring out how to structure this whole thing so that we're separating everything out into an ugly piece of shit set of functions like this, where we're reusing a lot of the same code. So like if nothing else, we can get rid of these, and like this needs to be its own separate thing, but we can call this addprod loop instead of gen, which I think is fine. And then we can call addprod check. And I mean, the only ugly thing here is that we have this wait2 sort of sagging around at the end, right? So I think that's better. And then in addprod check, how do we want to structure it? So I think like a very basic example would be like, this is the mech personality if you have 1 crash battlecruiser death. So a very basic way to do it here would be to do, so it should be like exc add factory check, right? And then we could do the simple add barracks check. Starport check. So by default, they roll through whatever is pertinent to their personality. And then wait. We still kind of have to make this look ugly, I feel like. Well, at least this is like the first draft of the function, but they do that, and then I mean, we don't really even need this, obviously. This is like a redundancy to save you from calling these every time, but I don't even know if that's really that inefficient, or if that saves us with that much efficiency. Over checking this every single time. Still pretty ugly, though. Because we have the same exact thing in here, so it's not really that big of a deal. This setup is super gross, though. Changing the, like, min-max values based on the personality should just be something as simple as, like, setting a variable or whatever. But we don't have variable support for integers, or whatever you would call those. That would make this a lot easier. I would have like one function for adding barracks, and I would set the value, like, I would set a series of variables to the value of minimum barracks for whatever personality, maximum barracks for whatever personality, medium barracks for whatever personality. And, I mean, you could even have dynamic stuff, but... I'm not sure what you would use that for. Yeah, it's way too high level for me. I don't understand any of that. Shared state being overwritten by other thread. Well, it's a call stack, so it's not like you're going to be doing some operation and then... I mean, I guess what you're saying is if I mess with a variable in one function and it fucks with the variable in another function, that could obviously... Like, you're using that variable later on for another calculation. But... I'm not really worried about that in this particular context. Even if I had that, I wouldn't be able to use it until I could actually write variables as these integers. So... I actually don't really have a great idea for fixing that right now. But at least this looks a lot better, so... I just can't believe how many fucking lines it is just to handle barracks for all the different personalities, for all the different sizes of building or of expansions of base areas. Oh goodness. And then obviously all the different add-ons. Jesus. Jiminy Crickets. Oh yeah, I'm gonna scroll through everything here. Every case of side disruptor being set to 1 needs to be bar set prod cycle 113. Wait. What the fuck? Why did I double it up there if I'm just gonna go to the same block that does that? I don't know anything about that. I've never used it. But it doesn't really, like... I don't know that it would actually resolve the issue I'm having here. Because it's not really that there's reused code or repeated code. Like, a lot of these numbers are very different depending on the situation, so... Otherwise, I would have just called a different function instead of it being... Like, if the minimum factories for the mechanical personality, the mech personality, were the same value, same number as, like, the maximum factories for the starport personality, I would just call that function for both cases. I think that happened. Yeah, that happens over here as an example. So if the personality is mech, then you go min bio for medium barracks. Obviously, if it's bio, you go medium bio. But if it's starport, you also go min bio because the values that I came up with for those things were the same. So I already do that to some degree, if that's what you are talking about. All right. So in the case of starports, I think most of the time, yeah, I use the same thing for bio that I used for general, which may not apply anymore. But I think general would probably want to use more fighters, and bio would probably want to use more. What's it called? Like support craft, I feel like. Mecha is definitely going to want to use more support craft, but they already have a dedicated thing here. Let's see what we can add, what we come up with for general, mech, and air, and then see if any of those can be repurposed for bio, or if I'm just going to have to make a separate thing. So in this case, we're just using randomness. We're always going control tower for general. I mean, I guess that actually is correct. Like I said, general is probably more likely to use support craft. Mech also wants to use support craft, but they have a small chance to go physics lab. I'm not really sure why. Okay, so I think we could probably actually axe all of this. Since they're doing the same thing, we'll make it so that it's at least 2. Oh. And for a minimum of air, so they randomize between physics and control. I actually think the air personality should probably just go exclusively physics lab stuff at science facility. They're gonna have the requests for control towers starports anyway, so I say bring 13 EX 0 or EX 1 or L1 science facility. Or how about no towns science facility and star in air 3? Right, and then we do that. This is munitions bay. Although maybe for minimum we should have stuff. Hold on. Maybe for minimum we should have control tower and munitions bay. In which case it would be like, I guess it would be more like a random chance, but... Like, I don't know how to make it not just fucking random. It should really be a sequential order, in which case I think... I think that's fine. It obviously means that they will do a sequential order of 2 munitions bays into 1 control tower, but there's an edge case where if you destroy their munitions bays, or they don't have the money to get them at the time, or whatever, they just haven't rebuilt them for whatever reason, they may stagger that out. And these requests will be created no matter what they have as far as tech level goes, which is obviously its own sort of thing. Crash battlecruiser death checks again. So in this case, we do have a dedicated one for mech, bio, air, and general. Maximum for general being 4? I guess, because it's like 2, 3, 4 for general then, because medium is 2 for these guys. Or minimum is 2, rather? Yeah, okay. So that's all accurate. Then we have... Again, there's some randomness here. So I think it should be... This should probably be like 1 control tower, 2 munitions, and a physics? If they have a science facility? I don't know. And then I think we can actually get rid of the bio one because it's pretty much exactly what I would want for the bio personality as well. And then we just have mech max, air max, and then obviously all the medium stuff. Okay. Mech max being 2, by the way. I think I'll set that a little bit higher. What did we set it for min otherwise? It was 2, yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not even sure why this exists. Now that I think about it, there's not really a reason for that redundancy. Beats me. Oh boy. All right, so back up to max mech. We have build starport 4. And I would say local L2 tower at Oh. All right. Should be good there. In theory. This is this code has one hell of a way of putting you to sleep. I'll tell you that much. Just get it ready for me to slot the new stuff in. So for medium, we decided on 3. That should be fine. And I think, like I said earlier, we'll axe the bio stuff because it does not appear that we will need it. So we'll say local. For the medium mech, it's fine to just rely on control towers, I think. And for medium air, what would we do for minimum air? I think it was, is it 3 for minimum air? Yeah, let's do 5 then. I guess we can just do the same thing that we did over there in Max. Although, I just realized that there's an obvious issue here. So for max, I think that's fine to make it minimum 1 on the medium, but for the max air, it should probably be something like just removing that entirely. Because it gets jumped to if they don't have a science facility. Yeah, okay. I like that. All right. I can't believe it, but that appears to have been resolved. And I will, I'll give it a quick spin when I return from my BRB. So BRB. I have returned. So weird to ever have something other than my voice in the background of all this, of like the audio. It's like I listen back to myself. You know what I mean? No. The fuck? The problem is I don't really know what the fuck I'm looking at, so I can't really tell me, you me now, if it's it strikes me as something that would be helpful. Okay, so it looks like you basically made function calls. So you have the function is add prod. The first argument is building ID. Second argument is amount. Third argument is max. Fourth argument is priority. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Fifth argument is mineral check. Sixth argument is Vespine check. And then you said this would be added on top of previous functionality of ASC3 preprocessor. You don't know how familiar I am with that. About as familiar as you think, which is not at all. Never used it, didn't even know it was a thing. Vaguely recall you mentioning it a long time ago. Didn't know you actually made it. Never seen it in action, so. Remember this? Also known as wrong. Well, while I can certainly see the utility of it, actually, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Oh, so equals I is the variable x getting passed over here. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely using stuff that I have very little experience with in any capacity. Like I don't really mess around with I loop, you know, the for loop type thing or I loop type thing where I'm down to experiment with that sort of thing. That's for sure. Anything that will make it a little bit more reasonable. Anyway, I've mucked about with that. But just saying, it will almost certainly involve a learning curve on my part, quite a steep one. So it sounds like you're grasping all of it. I mean, obviously you're making it. Just don't be surprised if I end up doing some really stupid shit with it or asking some really stupid questions. Well, it's okay because I'm also quite bad at understanding programming. So we make a great duo there. I'm sure it'll go swimmingly. Uh, something that I can place that you won't normally have. Uh, Nice debug messages, in my opinion. Seems to be a little buggy there. Hi, DF. Yeah, I don't know, man. Something seems wrong with the fact that they won't actually turn an attack. Ah! And if it dies in the middle of the operation, even worse. Destroyed. But hey, that's the start, man. That's something. Eventually they'll be moving as groups instead of individual units. Right now it's Age of Empires micro, except they don't actually return properly. Wonder what would happen if I decided to do it for... So for some reason, it seems like if it requires an animation, they don't actually attack. They just run away. That's weird. So what else would be like that? Wraith. We could try with mutas or something. Or Gorgas. Yeah, Wraiths should actually destroy Gorgolas if they micro. So. There's some bugs with the system for sure. Oh, that's pretty cool. Think you figured out how to automate the splicing of tiles in columns greater than 8? Won't have to result in a wider canvas and require manual labor to sort them? That does sound pretty good. I imagine you must have actually been trying to get some work done and been getting irritated or something with the regular stuff. I'm still in that like blissful mode where I'm like, I don't have to manually sort these. I can like. Right. For me, it's just like way better than manually moving all of the tiles. So I'm still like thinking back to those days and being like, oh man. Like honestly, this is something that goes with most of our tools, thankfully. Obviously, besides Firegraft. unfortunately. But just look at any of my mod streams from like a year ago. Watch me try to like make terrain edits. Right. I'm not saying I don't welcome the increase in ability or capability. It's certainly great to still continue rocketing forward through the information age. But I remember the Bronze Age days, the Dark Ages, God's Vacation, Todd's Vacation. What is this? Wait, why did I acquire ship overlord? Hello? Am I high? Why did I equip an overlord in here? Okay. No, that's cool. Whatever, man. Whatever you say, I queer. I was not expecting to see that. Well, have you been working with Java or JavaScript in the other game? Java is like a completely different language, I guess. Speaking from learned experience, I mean, like, what's the term when you're not talking from your own experience but from someone else's? Received knowledge. Speaking from received knowledge and not my own experience, they are very different. Let's see if this will even run on one of my test maps. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, JavaScript being interpreted is one of its fatal flaws. Oh, gross. He's still using the VX4EX with the logger. And dump.bin, by the way. Why dump? It's rude. Oh no. Aggressive mining! In this mode, moles mine 125% more minerals with each run, but take 175% of minerals from mineral cluster. I wonder if he intended to ship this. Whatever. 0.0.1. I wonder where that... Oh, that must be Ace. Yeah, so he has all the same plugins I do. I was wondering what was creating dump.bin. That must be like an A's thing. Oh. Yeah, I had mentioned yesterday that he should set one up because that way he'll have automatic backups. But all right, I sent him some feedback for the kiting micro. All right. So now what? You may be wondering. I have a little bit of time before I have to shove off for the day, and I have to run an errand. Which means I have to take a long-ass walk. Yeah, he even calls it savant targeting patches, but it's the ghosts. Oh no. What? That will cause some confusion in the future if I don't fix it, I think. Okay. Not actually sure what is left to do at this point. Wow, that's not at all where I wanted to go, idiot. Alright. It was kind of a mundane thing to do at this point, but it's probably warranted. So I have no idea what the 182 unit ID is. Strident Stratum. So, just got 2 more to do here. Hello, McCrinkle Dick. Nice to meet you, dude. Project Hydra is a remake of Brood War for all intents and purposes. Sans the campaigns, for the final campaigns. Really, we don't have too much in the way of actual single-player content right this second anyway. But it started off as a remake of the campaigns themselves. I wanted to make a co-op project. Then I decided, fuck it, I'll just do a bunch of tech tree changes too. And now we're here, many years later. So it's a completely new game state, tons of new units, completely revamped in-game sort of systems, if you will. AI that actually competes with you, tries to be better than you, tries to beat you. And all sorts of other good stuff. So very different, but different with a reason. Actually trying to be better than default Brood War, believe it or not. I do not believe mods are Mac compatible, no. I mean, it's using the same framework as a mod. And modified EXEs, well, they're EXEs, so I think you'd have to dual boot into, I don't even think they're Linux compatible, so I don't even think that would fix it, actually. But I'm not super well-versed in that. Never used a Mac, so can't say. But as far as I understand, they are not cross-compatible, unfortunately. I'm not sure what SWE is. Feel free to elaborate. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know you can start Starcraft on Linux, but as Veek says over on YouTube, I don't think it would work for modding, which mostly uses memory patching and the products of reverse engineering, since we never got the source code. Eventually we'll be running our own engine, but I don't think we'll be making great leaps and bounds to make it compatible with Macs on there either. I guess I should actually implement the Empyrean, what little I can implement in its current state. It would be really awesome if Ace had gone in and added support for like changing the offset or the source of the missile. But actually, I mean, I might even be able to do that myself in terms of where the source is. I just don't know how I would... Oh, maybe I could actually. Oh, I just got an idea. I'll try to play around with that when I think I can change the source, but I don't think I can change the direction is the problem. I can change the source coordinates based on like frame sets and stuff the same way that I did for the Paladin, where I changed the offset to always be somewhere close to his upper part there, where it looks like the missile tube is, and I could do something similar to make it so that it would work properly for the Empyreans, but at least where the source comes from, and then I could set its weapon type to go to max range, which obviously wouldn't deal any damage because we have to. We more or less have to program in the capability of colliding, like missiles colliding on with a unit dealing damage for it to actually deal damage. But if I could get the missiles working, that would obviously be one part of the puzzle done. So. Okay. I think I got everything, because I already had the blazing effigy Stats-wise taken care of. What do you mean by UI state? See, if you're studying software engineering, you're probably already ahead of me in that in some respects, because I didn't really study as much as I just bounced my head off the wall over and over again until I learned stuff. So, not a very intelligent way of learning shit, but a more utilitarian way, you could say. I don't actually remember where I threw that code in. I think it was in weapon fire. In the wrapper. Yep, here we go. Now this is ugly. All right. All right, I guess we'll do 71. Was it 6? It was 4. So this is really a shot in the dark. I have no guarantee that this is going to work very well. And I guess I really should... Is the Empyrean already in here? Yeah, it is. Okay. Oh, the other problem is I would actually want it to like alternate between 2 different sources or something, but I don't know. I guess for now we would just have it be 0 and -27. Oh yeah, I can I'll boot that up after I'm done mucking around with this stuff. One moment. Just using this to preview the spots it needs to go in. Oh yeah, that's the other thing is like for this, there is no... Oh wait. Wait. Yeah, here we go. There's no like cannibalizing or whatever. Or reusing the offsets here, so it's straight up 1 a different value for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Every single fucking frame. So I hope you weren't looking to learn best practice coding. We don't have that in Starcraft. Because this is a psychotic if-then. Oh. Okay. Well, actually just... Forgot that this is not zero-based in here. Yeah, well, there's a lot of tiers, I'll tell you that much. Alright, so we have 0, 2, 7... 8 minus 30, 13 minus 28. $29 and minus 34. That's a lot of threes right there, man. Hmm, 38 minus 27. Oops. Hey, that Eidolon guy was gonna do the do that launcher thing. I wonder if he would at least be willing to hand over his source if he's not able to continue contributing. Because it would be nice to have, like, when we release this project, it would be nice to be able to, like, automatically tell people to update when there's a new version or whatever. Six minus 4. We might be veering into pluses for the stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't even consider that because we were originally trying to use GitHub and then we moved to GitLab and I completely forgot about that. Nested else ifs make me die a bit inside. Well, DF, you're in the right place to die. This is all we got. I already had to do this once for the fucking Paladin. You have come to the right place to die. 4516. At least I have a preview tool that I can use for this. 3920. And again, I can't... That's the other thing is, like, this only works for every missile. It's not like I can do, oh, the first missile will be at this offset, and the second missile will be... So... It ain't gonna work out very well, as a matter of fact. But at least I'll have a proper setup here. 2230. Imagine if I decided to do this for every single unit in the game. Bye. Wait. I just realized that I pranked myself. And it actually was supposed to be... No, that's fine. Whatever. I'll just fix that after the fact. -1. 30. It is zero-based. See, I knew it the whole time. Oh man, this is gross. Wait. Is it? Did I forget something? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, never mind. I thought I made a mistake when I didn't. Love when that happens. Better than thinking I did it correctly and finding out the contrary. All right, listen. Everybody's a critic. I don't see anybody stepping up to the plate and doing it better. This is what we got. Okay? If I have to dilute my milk with water just to make ends meet, I mean, I don't have to. I am perfectly capable of learning how to do that stuff. But for the sake of being hilarious on a stream, I will have to say that I can't. I'm just incapable. Huh. Did I even actually set up the data override for Empyreans, though? Huh, definitely doesn't look like it. I like how its rank string is also seismic spines. Who's the whiz kid that decided to enable that fucking hook, by the way? Where is that? Who did this? Literally says to do, fix. It's not ready yet, you fuck. Somebody enabled that. It was probably Iquare's GitHub or something. I always say GitHub, by the way, instead of repo. Not me. Oh, I'll just blame Todd. Fuck it. Alright, hold on. So let me close this. And then I have to make a one of the last flingy entries in existence needs to be consumed for the Empyrean. So let's say 250. I don't know what happened to him. He fell. Ba-da-da. Always have to remember the unit IDs. Oh, wait. Huh? Huh? Oh, never mind. I thought for sure I actually left one spare entry over here at some point, but I think that's in images or something. Oh. Pulled a me. At some point I forgot to put the dummy begin text back in. All right, let's compare notes. Say, oh yeah, what is it, 509? I'm not writing that one down. Then in sprites, 579.28. Just copying the carriers and stuff for now because I think they're roughly the same size. Obviously, I haven't actually seen the graphic in action just yet. Just gonna add a pointer over here. $10.35. Yada yada yada. But we copy the scout actually. Oh, yeah, the engines. I'll have to figure that out later. That's not that big of a deal right now. What ISID are we on? 453. I think that's everything that I need, but I'm sure I'll have forgotten something, and something will be a scourge. Alright. Hey, he's in here. Check him out. Nice. I like the engines. They don't look out of place at all, actually. Hey, seismic spines is still in here. Oh. Yeah, I forgot to... Hey, in my defense, there was nothing on the data side. Somehow, all that stuff is fine. I just needed to change its button set to basic commands. Graphics definitely still need another pass, but we're mostly just stealing these from other games at this point. So I'll fix the shadow at some point, and yeah. Okay. So right now we don't have the launching 4-missile thing, but I always wondered about these floating balls on the carrier. Why do they have them? What are they? Is it a bug that they're floating? Are they not? Are they not supposed to be connected to there? Seems a little odd to me, that's all. So, funnily enough, the... Oh, I think I may have fucked up my offset at some point, by the way, guys. But at least we know it's working. Alright. So, hold the phone. We'll go into the iScript, do its attack animation. Comment out the incredible if-else. Oh wait, I didn't add the latest iScript. Man, if the modding tools were just a little bit more reasonable and I didn't have to restart the game every single time I wanted to make a change or close one program in order to make it happen. If only. What's up, Tomaz? How you doing, dude? Alright, so... Well, something seems off. Oh yeah, because I only replaced the ground animation and not the air animation. A classic move. I do love the going max range and then not really going that far. Oh, hey, this unit's hard-coded with interceptors. I didn't know that. Oh, range is 6. Oh, well, I guess that would explain it. So they will only go a certain range, right? Which I think is fine. But... yeah, I think they should actually have a much higher range, like maximum range. But after a certain point, you should probably see, like... I want to say you should be able to see something to the effect of, like... limited attack range. Like, the target has to be within a certain radius to attack, but the missile can just fly off into the sunset. which I don't think there's any behavior like that. I guess it would be the lurker, actually. The lurker has that behavior. But I don't know how they did it. They might have their own hard-coded stuff that we don't have access to. I don't remember if Skyfall even deals damage to air units. Oh yeah, I would say so, probably. One thing I'm not really sure about Skyfall in its current state, though, is like I targeted here, and I guess that's where all of the the cone went, right? Like if I target this pylon, I guess it's sort of at the center. Yeah, it's roughly at the center of the missiles. I wonder if maybe the target should be the starting point, so you actually have this cone after your starting point, which would give you more effective range, but also make you like, I got to target closer to me if I want to hit farther away, something like that. Like in its current state, it feels like a little odd that that's like that. I don't know. But we can figure that out as time goes on anyway. The other unit I was playing around with earlier is this one. Doesn't even have the right name right now, but it's supposed to be like a... I kind of wanted it to almost feel like a dragon in a way. Hear me out, though, right? Shadow's not working. Hear me out about the dragon thing. I just like the idea of it having a breath attack. So, like, the idea that it like... I mean, we already kind of have that in the game. Like, Acid Spray was basically supposed to be that in the beta. So, what's that Flying Ultra? This is the Gorgoleth. I even did a birth animation for it, unlike all the other ones right now. I still have to do that later. Oh, Devour Strain has the fucked up tooltip. I'll have to fix that. So, I think the color grading on the, I used the older color graded graphic before we changed some of it to be a little bit brighter, but basically it's a Flying Ultra, like you said, pretty much. It deals concussive damage, though, so it's not quite the same kind of thing as the Ultralisk. It has a couple passives here, and then an active ability. So, as long as the Gorgolith has sufficient energy, its attacks deal area damage and drain 10 energy per hit. So, as long as it has more than 10 energy, it will spend that energy to deal increased damage. As you can. Then it has this other one where it gains up to double attack speed based on their energy. So the more energy it banks, the faster its attack speed. All right, have a good one. Thanks for the follow. So as you can see, we just massacred those two men. But if we wanted to get some of our energy back, and there happened to be a nice little medic over there, we could just go ahead and steal energy from them. And then run away, because we're pretty low on health. But stuff like that. Basically, a unit that is meant to be pretty good against like squads of bio, pretty good against masses of enemy air units. Obviously, they deal full damage to mutas. Wraiths are light, as opposed, or they're small size as opposed to large in the regular games. I made a bunch of balance changes based on stuff like that. Obviously, you have Corsairs, which have been changed to small. You also have Aurora, the Aurora, which is a new unit. It's also small. So you got like a couple more fighters in the game in general. So this is like the Zerg answer to that is, you know, this medium-sized unit. So they deflect some damage from concussive and some damage from explosive and all that stuff. So I don't have the interest in making a remastered skin, mostly because I don't like the remastered graphics. The art style is completely different. Not at all my cup of tea. And it goes away from the more gritty, mature aesthetic that the default game had. Though obviously it's not like there's no problems in the default game either. But standard definition graphics were significantly more consistent, obviously more readable, a lot of advantages to them. And I am a very utilitarian person in that sense when it comes to games. Like most of the new games just rely on wow factor or whatever. And I'm looking for what things would actually be useful with. What the fuck? Now, is it just me, or did something get... That's weird. Why did that happen at all? That string was just messed up completely. Shouldn't have had anything to do with... Okay. Oh, it's probably one of like the last Brood War strings that I forgot to fix after there was some fuck. I mean, I'm with you on the idea that the graphics need a bit of an overhaul insofar as like the graphics that we're taking from other games, they weren't made for StarCraft. They don't match StarCraft's art style most of the time, or the caliber of work that was put into the original graphics. So, graphical concerns, I agree. But sort of like I was talking about earlier with the blood, sweat, and tears approach to programming that you mentioned, we kind of have that for everything in StarCraft. The one thing we don't have a shortage of is... I think high-quality voice acting. I did most of the voice acting for the new units thus far, or all of it for the new units thus far in Hydra, but there's way more that needs to be done. I'm pretty confident that I can do a pretty good job about that when the time comes. And obviously I'm learning programming and stuff for this express purpose of making it a little bit easier to add features and stuff to the engine. But as far as like we don't really have anybody making high-quality music. We had one guy, but unfortunately he is... indisposed. We don't really have anybody making like high-end graphics. Well, the thing is we do, but it's one guy, and he's very busy doing everything because he's one guy. It's like in a situation where you're talking about adding like I want to have it so that every race has like 60 units and however many buildings would be required to support that kind of thing. 5 tiers of tech, if not more. Like, in order to support this kind of thing, you need a huge number of assets. And none of us are magical men that can push a button and generate high-quality assets that match the art style of StarCraft. So, unfortunately, not really that much we can do in that department. So, but we'll keep trucking along. The little modders that could, honestly. We'll eventually get to the destination there. But... even so, even with rough around the edges graphics and, well, mostly that, I would say. I rough around the edges engine, because it's StarCraft's engine, and StarCraft's engine is a mess. Even despite that, we've been able to put together some pretty fun maps and a pretty engaging game state to play. Like, we play multiplayer nights a couple times a week. And assuming we don't run into networking issues, because this engine is very fragile when it comes to desyncs. So, unfortunately, that can happen, and it's very difficult to track down and debug them. But assuming we don't run into issues like that, we tend to have a pretty good time. So, hell yeah, brother. But anyway... I digress, for I am on my way out here. I gotta get to the store before they close down. For some reason, they decided to close at 6:30 today, so I'm unfortunately going to have to tap out for now. But I appreciate everybody hanging out and asking your questions and all that stuff. For sure, we ended up making some pretty good progress today. We started hooking up that new Protoss unit, which leaves us with only the 1 Zerg unit. Well, like 1.5, because we have to finish implementing that. The 4 Protoss units and like the 1 Terran unit. So actually we're pretty close to like being done for a while in terms of adding new units. So yeah. I'll catch you guys tomorrow for another one. Do these every day. Hopefully it'll be earlier in the morning this time, in line with my supposed schedule, but today was pretty late. So Thanks for hanging out. See you guys later.